Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of MN Viking Zombie, and we've got Kyle Smith here with me. We're doing the third part of the Fear Street series, breaking down a bit. This one was 1666, and it was a bit of a mixed bag in my opinion, but we'll definitely get more into what we liked and didn't like from this installment of the movie series. But first, let's say hi to Mr. Smith. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Happy Monday to everyone that watches this, or whatever day that you watch it. Yeah, Adam nailed it. We've done every movie in this series. I like Adam's suggestion to do relevant stuff and what's going on right now. So if you're a Netflix fan, you've probably seen the promos for this because it's been in the top 10. And we finished the series of Fear Street, and we're going to break down part 3, 1666 today. And I'm excited to share thoughts. I'm excited to see what Adam thought, because I feel like we're probably going to say a lot of the same things, but I'm sure we'll have something in there that we differ on. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, because we didn't get a big bow on everything, but we got enough to where there's enough for the story to both move forward and get some closure with the current group of characters. So, well, it wasn't a super rewarding conclusion to the series. I feel like it was good enough. Were you satisfied by the way everything kind of ended up?
Well, let's start with breaking down the jump from the second series, and which was 1972, and then going all the way back to 1666. It ties everything back together into 1994, where the original started. That's the thing that I liked. I had some questions on what exactly was going on with the main character in this show, because I'm not really sure how she was able to see into this into the past. I had a little bit of questions on if this was all just a big, zooming fast emotion, and we just got to see it in real time, or if she actually experienced this, because that would answer some weird random questions that I have with it. But
see,
I don't know.
What I had with that is when she first arrived, she did the cesarean, I believe, for the pig. And that's not something that the main character would probably know how to do. Yeah. So I'm assuming that this is just the main character looking through the eyes of the character back in 1666, and them not having any control whatsoever over what it was. Basically just her seeing the secret.
Right.
That the witch had installed. But it was interesting because last time we went live and talked about part 2, I feel like a bit of a smarty pants, because I was talking a lot about the sheriff, the origin story, the connection there, the tree movement, and all that. And I still don't really understand the tree thing, because apparently the community, the camp, all that was torn down on the same site over where this witching stone is. So all those things happened at that one location.
Yeah, and then we're talking about locations and stuff here. Under the courthouse in this movie is where the underground lair is, and this tunnel where all this satanic rituals are going on. And I also found it really funny. And like Adam said, we're going to bounce around talking about this film, but I found it funny that, she makes the big reveal, and the guy that you thought kind of had the sweets for her ended up being the guy who was causing all this.
Good is evil.
Yeah, it was a cool twist. But when she figures this out and she stabs him, it's one of those classic horror movie mistakes that you never make. You don't just stab somebody and run. You got to finish the job. We've said this many times throughout these now 3 episodes. But if you wanted to point the evidence out, all you have to do is say, hey, go check in his house and go underground. And that's the end of it. You didn't have to die, and that would have ended there. Taking the noble route obviously wouldn't have had this movie been created in the first place.
Well, let's take this a step further. The elaborate plan to set up the blood traps at the mall.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was quite a bit. But if their main goal was just to kill Sheriff Good, why did they need to bring the monsters out at all?
Yeah, that's a very good point. If he dies and he's the one who's been holding the curse, through the generations, now he's
and we saw that when he died, there was all the monsters just went poof anyway.
Correct. So if he's the stakeholder for this generation, essentially, if he dies, they should die. Yeah,
all they'd have to do is draw him out and kill him, and they wouldn't have to deal with the monsters at all.
And I said this, obviously no one was here watching it with me, but I said this too. I was like, you guys are going to go to the mall. She's already made the phone call. He knows he's going to go there. I was like, he's going to bring backup. Cops always bring backup.
Right.
I was so frustrated. I was like, what are you doing? I really loved the comedic effort in this one, though, because most of this movie was super serious.
Now, I did struggle to kind of find the connection of why they stopped off and picked up the graffiti artist.
That was my favorite part of the comedic side of this third part here.
Oh, he added a lot to that final, the final scenes. But the reason he was included is still a bit shady, in my opinion, because he was never really confirmed as being any sort of major impact in the movie. I mean, to me, he was a background character.
100%. And I'm looking at his name. This is Daryl Britt Gibson, and he plays Martin in the movie. He's the graffiti artist that was
he did an excellent job
partaking in drugs in the movie, and he gets arrested for vandalism, which we find out in the third movie he was framed for. But I love the concept of these kids stole a cop car and they roll up and they say, "Hey, what's up, Martin?" He's like, what are you doing?" And like, takes a couple of minutes. He's like, "Hey, do you want to go kill the sheriff?" He's like, "Yeah, let me grab my jacket." I thought that was hilarious. I had to rewatch it a couple times. That was good classic stuff. I really liked that. But yeah, you're right. To add him in, just to tie in another character who's still alive, maybe that was the point. To add muscle because they needed, one person per monster. I don't know. Not really sure. I'm glad that he was in there, but it was a very, very minimal ask and detail for that character.
And then they built up Ruby quite a bit for a scene that just kind of fell flat. I thought they were going to make her be a little bit like a stronger monster villain kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's strange that she took so long to show up on the scene, and they did the whole taunting with the axe banging against the thing, which the other mindless, bloodthirsty monsters following the trail, they were just focused on following the blood trail.
Yeah,
that's the one answer that one of the answers that we never really got is the motivation of some of these monsters as to who they'll kill, who they won't, and just how focused they are. Because, like I said before, the taunting for Ruby and the sitting and crying and all that doesn't follow in with what the other killers were doing.
Yeah, and the little things you question, because you can dissect the movie and nitpick this all day long, is they're going to lure all the monsters into separate stores, and then they're going to shut the gate. Well, they have the wherewithal to walk right past a person that they can see, that they've chased before, but as soon as a gate slams, it clicks in their brain to be like, oh, that was a trick. Now I'm upset. I don't know.
They didn't even follow the trail of blood to make sure that there was nobody at the end. Right. Now, if they did that and then turned around and tried going back, I'd have been like, all right. But no, they had like you said, the awareness to realize that they had the wool pulled over their eyes when that kind of intelligence wasn't there before.
And the other thing that I noticed,
the one killer was just hacking a pile of clothes in the house. I mean, it's not like they knew what was going on. It's just the way they were doing things.
Yeah, that's one of the constants in this movie with these villains is sometimes they're superhuman and like Jason Voorhees-esque, where it's like you can shoot me, you can stab me, I'm not going to die, I'm going to keep coming after you, and then they get all attaboyed right into a like a mousetrap pretty much. And in my head, being the horror fan that I am, I'm looking at everything I can nitpick, just like we were talking about earlier. Oh no, I found the witch. I'm like, hey, check under his house. I'll wait. That's really easy to do. These guys are pulling on that door. We've all seen it at the mall, and it's a pretty sturdy door. You're probably not going to run through or cut through it. It's pretty sturdy in its design, but they're surrounded by glass windows. These monsters can smash right through those things. I was just like, a little bit of letdown, but I'm being nitpicky there.
So I had some questions after the last movie about the festering, boiling black liquid with all the flies and everything. And apparently that's where the monsters go to sleep when they're not chasing someone, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of like their respawn and where they come out of. It still made me think of the worst Friday the 13th movie in the franchise. But yeah, I guess that's where they come back out of, and that's their home base.
Kind of like a little gooey portal, I guess.
Yeah. And then didn't you see it kind of took some strength? Again, referencing a Jason movie, Freddy versus Jason. Freddy's not strong enough yet. He's getting there, though. Didn't you see as the movies progressed and the spirit got bigger and the killings started happening more, that blob got stronger and bigger? Did you notice that too?
Oh, yeah, as did the weird red moss that was surrounding everything. So
I did like the backstory of that. I did like the backstory of it being a symbol of love in that movie, based on her lover that she pretty much gave her life for, and then it would sprout later on to just cover everything like a never-ending love. I thought that was pretty cool, but man, that was brutal. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, there were a lot of actually really good modern messages in this movie. There was a lot of race inclusion. There's a lot of LGBTQ kind of stuff going on. It was nice to see a film that was so, I'm going to say, progressive a little bit in that respect, because the casting was diverse. I did feel it was strange, though, when I was watching this film, because the community, the main character, her little brother is an African-American boy, and it's just odd to see in that all-white community the one black kid running around. It's like,
yeah, I think when they had the scene where the pastor had taken his eyes, and I don't know if he killed everyone, but he definitely took everyone's eyes. I think I saw one other black person in the church. So that definitely crossed my mind too. I was like, okay, cool. Well, you can see that she's kind of a mixed race. He's completely black. Right. And the character we're talking about too here, if I still have it open, because he was phenomenal in these movies. I really enjoyed his character. This is Benjamin Flores Jr. He was Henry and Josh. Man, I'm so excited to see where these kids go. Kind of like we saw with Stranger Things. These kids are all the younger kids are going to just blossom, and they're going to get a lot of opportunities in film later. But I really liked his character. I really think that he played that to a T. I really like the, I'm not a big game person like you or Mr. West from our football podcast, but I love that they gave a cheat code as a message to each other as like brother and sister to be strong. I thought that was cool. That was
one of the things I thought was weak, along with the obligatory pep talk where they all stopped to do the Braveheart speech in front of the fountain.
The Braveheart speech.
All those movies have the Braveheart speech, their own version of it. And that one was corny as hell too. So, I mean, as much as I would love to say that was an inspiring speech that pulled everyone together, it just felt so out of place.
I didn't like the speech. I liked the cheat code. It made me think back to my PlayStation 1 days and buying the Game Shark and having to write down on paper how I'm going to beat Mortal Kombat and all those things. I was like, oh, wow, nostalgia moment. Soundtrack, not bad in this one. Not a lot of songs like we had precluded to in the second part to to jam to from the 1600s.
Right. Once
This
they
was
shifted back forward again, it was some good tunes though. Again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought this was a very serious side of these films. Not that the killing and the backstory wasn't, and the drugs and all that, but just seeing that intensity back in the day. Because you got to think this is all based on kind of sort of what we know through history, and how quickly your whole town can turn on you, but just by hearsay. So that really drew me in. All those movies in that era really do, because of just how quickly the population can go ahead and determine and dictate your fate was pretty crazy.
Yeah, the Romeo and Juliet kind of stuff with the forbidden love was that kind of story will always fare well whenever you try to put that in any situation, whether that's the main focus of the story or just something to raise a little bit of interest to the characters. That kind of situation will always do that. But we got to talk for a second here, because was that the shortest oral sex scene I've ever seen in a movie?
Yeah, that was pretty short.
And I definitely wasn't rooting for more, because I don't want to see these young girls doing all that stuff. But still in the woods, I mean, if they're going to go for it, they might as well go for it. I mean,
yeah, you know how the second one had the obligatory, like, we're doing it at camp scene? This was kind of that one, minus, it was very much a light PG-13. Thank God there was no nudity and stuff for that. But
right.
Yeah, this is kind of just obligatory. That it could have been just them sneaking off to have like a passionate kiss, and it would have been totally fine. Because either way, in that day and age, you're kind of screwed if you get caught doing that. So
right.
I don't know. I wasn't. It's not a make or break for me, but I'm just kind of with you there. I'm like, all right, speed this along.
I get that they were trying to make the strong connection with all the passion and everything, but yeah, that whole scene with sneaking off into the woods and stealing the berries, and I still don't really understand how. Okay, reading from the book I get, but I thought that there was going to be more involved with stealing the berries from the witch. That's where I thought things were going to kind of start picking up a little bit. Instead, they swerved us again.
Yeah, more drugs in this movie. Kids, don't do drugs.
Yep. And just don't eat any weird berries you find in a pail.
Yeah, and don't go to a random lady's house digging through her stuff thinking that you're going to find answers you want. That's probably not a good idea either. Oh, man. Yeah, where were we? We're talking about berries. Yeah, the berries were fun.
I get that kids sneaking off into the woods, doing their own thing. Yeah, that's the teenage rebellion and all that. But again, it's all so troped out. The preacher's daughter, the lower class girl. And it's just like, okay, I get it. For me, that part, well, I felt like when they took that trip back to 1666, they over-explained a little bit of what was going on in the other films as far as how to connect it all.
Right.
And that I like a little bit of mystery before the big twist reveal. That's why I enjoyed that first Saw movie so much, is because you have seen the first Saw movie, right, Mr. Smith? Okay, good. Because by the time the twist was revealed, I had no clue as to what that twist was going to be, and it got me. It got me really good. And
it's crazy
then
we got a Saw reference like, here.
Identity, the John Cusack movie. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Okay, I won't ruin that one, but I will say that one made the fatal error of doing what this film did and revealing far too much before the twist. And it kind of makes things a little too obvious heading in. You can say, like, if you're really observant during the Sixth Sense or something like that as well, you can pick up on the clues. Yeah. And this clue trail, as soon as they started with the Sheriff Good stuff, they hammered it home instead of being subtle with, oh, well, look, it might be someone else. It might be a different situation. Maybe it's not this Sarah witch lady. But yeah, it all just that trip to 1666, I get why it happened, and I am glad that you could kind of understand a bit more about those characters and the descendants and why the towns didn't like each other and all that. It does explain a lot more about the towns hating each other, just a ton more.
You know, I didn't. Now it's making me think of the hackiness that I didn't like at the beginning, where there were, you know, how you just said the film explained a lot that you didn't need to explain. They're pretty much the same characters in different outfits, but they had the kind of cheesy, not so good accents, and I'm like, come on, guys, we get it. We totally
The accents
get it.
were bad.
Yeah, the accents were not very good, and I didn't like that. I didn't like because I've seen such good acting from them in moments of chaos where they had to add this extra layer. And then literally the sisters from the second one are sisters again. And like, we already saw that, you know, like, are these direct descendants? Is that why they're sisters in both movies? Like they could have spruced that up just a little bit, but it's already done. So
I do have another question for you though.
Okay.
So in the first movie in 94, the blonde girl moves away from the main character and moves into the new ritzy town. And she goes to the new school and they accept her. But then when he has to give the name of a shady cider, he gives the blonde girl's name, right? Or am I off with this? Because, okay, no, he gives the main character's name, but they still allowed the blonde girl to cross the line into the other territory when they said that the cop's family, the demon devil, I guess we'll call it, feeds on the blood of shady ciders. Well, she wouldn't be a shady cider anymore, although her descendants would be.
Yeah. Are they making an exception now that she's gone? You know, because of her original status there? That's a solid question to ask. Because technically she wouldn't have been a part of it. Or maybe she got away, but she was dragged back in by this love that wouldn't let her go. I don't know. I don't want to think that it's that deep.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that if you are a nitpicky person, this movie will make you go, and be a little cringy. But if you take this movie as a whole with all the parts, with all the running time, with all the characters, with the storyline that yeah, it's got a few plot holes here and there. I still found this to be a pretty good movie experience that I don't know if I would share with a pre-teenish audience, but if you've got a teenager, I'd say sure. It's a nice little kind of like. I was asked by somebody, if you were going to introduce someone to horror, what movie would you use? And I've always said Scream.
I love Scream so much.
Because it's such a nice blend of like a pop culture thing mixed with a killer that it's not only fun, but it's a nice start to feeling how horror can start. It's a good jumping off point. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more modern, I'd say this Fear Street series might not be a bad start if you're going to get one of your teenagers or a young friend involved in trying to get them to enjoy something a little bit more scary and edgy. This might be a nice place to start.
Well, the thing I'll agree with you on there too is you get some throwback element to this a lot. They do a great notion in all these movies to some slasher elements that I know you and I love. So on that side of it, I would say absolutely. The only thing I disagree with is, this is a lot to kind of unpuzzle, and it does start with one and go backwards, which is, I'm not saying anyone who can't figure that out isn't intelligent, but it's a lot to process and move puzzle pieces around. But yeah, I think a modern choice, it's a great idea. This is a lot of fun. There's comedic elements. There's a good backstory. There's lots of characters to unravel and peel.
Right.
So yeah, it's not a bad choice at all. I love that you mentioned Scream though. Shout out to that. Cause that was growing up. That was one of my favorite movies just of any genre. I love the Scream. God, what are they in now? They're at 4 of those.
Yeah. There's a new one coming out. I believe it's starting next year.
Oh God, I hope they don't butcher it. I like the first 3. I wasn't too keen on the 4th one, so we'll see. But anyways, yeah, it's a lot to unravel in this one, but overall, I didn't hate this one. I love the time period. I guess I'm more in love with the time period and just how barbaric it was back in that day. You know, it even started when she transported back. You immediately go in to cutting a pig open to get the baby out. I'm like, oh my God, was this really necessary? But for what it was precluding to for the rest of the movie, I guess so.
Yeah, when the evil really started hitting and the preacher was tearing out everybody's eyes at the congregation, and the pig ate their babies and everything, and you got the dead dog in the well. It all was just a lot at once.
Yeah, that was crazy. I forgot about the dog. Ugh.
That was one stiff, wet dog.
That's an amazing quote. Yeah, I forgot about that. And then this rounds out your point. There's a lot of dark stuff here, especially that scene in the church, man. Whew, that was pretty intense.
He told people to stay back, but they went in and saw it with their own eyes. But yeah, it's still strange that kind of religious community went forward with such strength to attack what they felt was evil and witchcraft, because these days witchcraft science has pretty much replaced that in a lot of things. I mean, there's still a lot of stigmas for things that we can't see or feel or really have any valid scientific proof of that people believe. But I mean, the idea that all of a community would be willing to hang one of their own just because they think they're a witch
so quickly too, because you saw them get up in front of everyone, you know, which I thought was kind of crazy to start, until Sarah decided she wanted to turn her back on the guy who would pretty much become a Satanist. He was defending her and saying, like, and I'm sure this had evil intentions. I'm sure he was just trying to groom her, but he's defending her in the court of public opinion, which is pretty much all that was. And then you saw people actively get up one by one as it came around before the town turns on her and goes on a manhunt, or a witch hunt, as we should say. You saw everyone get up in front of others and lie. And like, I saw this. I'm like, no, you didn't. You didn't see this. And I really felt for her. I mean, you'll feel for her, spoiler alert, if you watch this movie and you're watching her die while she hangs at a tree. But goodness, man. You see all these people get them up blatantly lying just because they want to get revenge. And that mob mentality, oh, it's gruesome.
And she's got some strong balls not to pee and poop herself when she got hung. I mean, I know that they don't want to go that far into detail with some of these, but when people die, yeah, they kind of do that.
Yeah, it was nuts. I don't like that in movies. It's one of the things that it always makes me sad. It makes me like creeped out. Made me think of The Conjuring. You know, you see that when the wife there always sees stuff that the husband can't, and I just hear that rope swinging and somebody going, and you just see feet, and I'm like, oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. It always gets me. And they use a chain too. I was like, goodness, man, these guys are savages. You know, that didn't feel good.
Now, was it every single movie? I can't remember. In the first movie, was the blonde girl, was she ever like chained to anything? Because it felt like she spent a lot of time chained to a well or a radiator or something.
Oh my God. Yeah, and the first one she was pretty free to roam, but yeah.
After that, she was pretty confined.
Yeah, when you're possessed, good luck. They're going to chain you up they're going to cage you like an animal, rightfully so, because we saw what happened in the movie. The moment they let her go, she immediately jumped on someone's throat and tried to kill them. That was nuts.
And you had that little bit of a corny scene where she recognized her past lover in the eyes of the ancestor.
Yeah, that was totally a Hollywood moment. Like you couldn't figure that out the entire time you were locked up in a trunk somewhere.
Yeah, right. The whole time they were tied to the radiator, that all never came true. But maybe that had something to do with the fact that she hadn't had that vision yet. But still, I mean, they had to transport her. Well, like they didn't. Did they transport her, or Was she still at the house and broke free and ran to the mall?
I think they took her with. I'm not 1,000,000% positive on that, but I know they had her in the house for a while. They got
And they
her
knocked
to
her
the
out.
yes, kicked her in the head. She's like, I've been wanting to do that all day. That's so funny. Yeah, they had to have transported her because she got loose at the mall and she was chained up. Then if she was there freely, she wouldn't have chained herself up. So
Right.
yeah, they definitely knocked her out for a little bit, took her to the mall and tied her up again. And they're like, oh crap, we're missing someone. That's funny. Classic horror movie mistakes, guys. Don't tie the monster up and walk away. Keep him in your sight.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where they go from here because, as I've said on each of these reviews, this is going to be a jumping off point for the series. They want to make more movies and branch off from these. And, I mean, these movies, these 3 films, I enjoyed the first, I think, the most out of all of them.
Yep.
But then from there, it's not that they went downhill. It's just maybe it's just me because of the time periods. The 78 I felt was good just because of the camp atmosphere and everything. I don't fare well with period pieces. So when things go back in time, I kind of lose a little bit more interest because I can't relate to it anymore.
Yeah.
So when I'm seeing all this 1666 stuff, I mean, it's fine. It's just I can't be drawn in the way I could when a show is based in 94 or even 78, where I can almost relate to it.
Well, it's hard too, and I think I speak for a lot of people when you say this. Maybe not everyone, but a majority. When you see characters develop like the first one, which now I can kind of put into pieces, and I will say I agree with Adam. I think the first one out of all these is the best. The second one is second, and the third is third. And that doesn't mean the third one's trash, and I hate it, not by any means.
No.
But it's hard when you see, especially what they did with this movie, which I give them credit. It takes balls to do. But it's hard to see these teenagers be teenagers in 1994 and then to see them as pretty much adults in 1666. It's so hard to see them in the same light because I need different characters to differentiate. You know what I mean?
Right.
And at that point, too, I think they could have used different characters. Like the original Sarah, I wish they would have used her instead of the main character because I don't know, man. I feel like it would have been a better connection because every time I looked, almost instantaneously, I had to dissect the two. I'm like, oh, she's Sarah. I get it. Whether you know, like when you see in a movie, I just saw. What did I see?
You saw the new Fast and Furious.
I saw that. I saw Black Widow recently, and they showed younger them, and then teenage them, and then now. Those are 3 different people. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was nice because I was like, oh, okay, one little scene will designate who is who if you can't tell by age. I kind of wish that they would have done that for this, but that would have meant that for this movie, they would have had all new actors and actresses. So
it is weird they inverted the way that, like you just said, the way that we would have understood it better to where when the main character was the main actor, when they looked in the water, they saw the reflection of the person they really were.
Yep.
I felt like if that would have been switched, it might have been a little bit better. But yeah, I mean,
I think that was the toughest selling point for me. And not to say that they didn't do a good job. The accents were a little cheesy, but I enjoyed the overall plot, and they put it together pretty well, especially for that time period. I think they kind of nailed it. Women have to do this role. You have to be up early to do your chores, that kind of thing. I think they nailed that down. Religion was like the foundation of the community. It was really hard to take it as cool because they were pretty much the same, like we said earlier, the same characters with a wonky accent, and they were just in different clothes, and that kind of threw me off. But maybe, like I said earlier, maybe I'm just being nitpicky. I don't know.
It sounds like Shady Side isn't going to be as terrible anymore, and meanwhile, the other town just immediately went to shit with that car getting hit and everything. It didn't take long for that to fall apart. So maybe some of the next movies will focus a little bit more on that city that's been blessed, just struggling a little bit more, and Shady Side building back up. But we do know that at the very end, somebody grabbed that book that was marked by police evidence. And now we're kind of wondering who has the book and what's going to happen with it. And I'm sure that's going to be addressed in a future project.
I will say, now that we're talking more and we're just, my mind goes in a million directions. It's always like spider webs. I will say that what was cool, and the question that I had between the first two films was answered in this one. You remember how they kept a list of who they were killing?
Yes.
And we found out why and who they chose. And I thought that was really, really cool that they explained that part of it. For all the stuff that they didn't have to explain to us, I'm glad that they gave us a reason why. Because I was genuinely worried by like the fourth person that got murdered in the very first one. Like, okay, why are they killing these people? Is this just Michael Myers-ish, where we're just going to say, if you get in my way, I'm going to put a knife in your head? Or, oh, there's a list. Okay, so... okay, there's got to be a backstory to this. So I'm glad they explained that. I don't have to reveal it on here, but if you watch this and you're wondering, cool, there is a rhyme and reason. You just have to get through 3 films to figure it out.
Yeah, we had a lot of questions throughout the entire time since we started watching this about how this all worked. And while we didn't get all of them answered, we got enough to where I think it feels okay. I still would have liked a little bit more clarity as far as some of the shady siders that died that didn't have blood on them. Like, for instance, that very first scene in the movie. The girl that was working at the Hot Topic or whatever it was. I don't understand why she was a victim.
Right.
But maybe it was just because he had to meet a quota to fill up shady cider blood. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Now that you bring it up, now I have that question, and it's going to bother me.
Because I liked that first character. I was interested to see what happened with her, and of course, I fell into that because those horror movies, just like I talked about with Scream, when they introduced that first character, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to like this character, and they kill him off, and in just the killer gets their first kill, and there it is, and you're left saying, oh my God, this movie's going to be killing everybody off. And you get that same exact impression from this movie, even though looking back on it, once you have watched the movie, that kill makes no sense.
I thought it was pretty sweet. I guess we should pick one out of all the movies. I thought it was pretty sweet that to end everything, the cop got a knife to the eye. That was a pretty sweet kill. I was pretty happy with that. I can't think of much more brutal stuff than that. I don't think it would directly kill him unless it went all the way through, but that was pretty sweet. I had a point there and I forgot what I was going to say. Going off of the list and stuff. What's your favorite kill in this movie? Is it where they filleted somebody's head in a grocery store? I mean, that's probably the best one, right?
It's got to be between that one and that outhouse slashing. It's one of those two, and I can't decide which, but visually the meat slicer thing, that was just way too good, I think, to pass up. So yeah, I think that one was the best, not only because of how cool and gory it looked with the CGI and everything, but also because that kill had a lot more impact, I felt, because of the characters involved.
Yeah, no, that's a solid point. Yeah, especially if she was gonna like give the younger character hope and like gave him a kiss, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm rooting for you to live, and like you guys killed her. Okay, that's cool.
But they also went back to that, and they gave him a love interest again at the end.
That's true. I really like that. That was cheesy, but I was a fan of it. Finding another nerd who just happens to.
And did you notice that when she wrote on his cast, that the name on there was the same person he was talking to on the computer?
Yes, I did. And I thought it was funny because if this was in the 90s, you wouldn't do at whatever else like we do our Instagram handles nowadays. But hey, whatever. That works. And yes, I did pick that up. And that is cool how they tied all that together, seeing as how they both got along so well. And started the first movie, which would have directly come back around. If you watch the series of movies, you watch the first and it's in real time, then they have to go back for the second, back again. And at the very end of the third, you're back to the beginning and all your questions should be answered. But Yeah, for Kill, I think that was the coolest, most unique one. I'm a big fan of the guy with the potato sack on his head. That's kind of like Jason and just going around just murking people like axe murderer. Sign me up for that every time because I want to see how somebody beats that. He was very brutal in the way he killed, so I like that the most.
Yeah, he had a very memorable way of acting. Like I've seen him or that style of acting before in horror films and TV shows, and it's a welcoming way of acting that not only makes you think that the character is kind of creepy, but it makes you feel like the genre itself is a real thing because
Yeah,
the way that the woodsman acted was so much like the killers of the past. If you watch Halloween, if you watch Friday the 13th, he fit right in with all those tropes. So I felt like that was probably just so much of a great way to portray the killer of the woodsman.
and you have to give a shout out to all those guys. Like back in the day, I don't know who played Michael Myers, but I know Kane Hodder did a lot of Friday the 13th as Jason. He was like in most of them. You got to do a sell because the guy's face is out of it, and the way you hold the weapon and your body language and everything, it does all the talking for you. So I really liked him. Initially I was like, oh, cool, that guy reminds me of Jason. He's automatically going to be my favorite. You see him in the second in the camp series of how he gets his mask, which was dope, and then with the third. He was the guy with the really shitty teeth, right? In the haircut. This is the same guy.
And even before he got the mask, the acting was amazing.
Yeah, he was a very likable, lovable guy. And I'm like, oh my God, he turned into like a raging psychopath. This guy's pretty good. And then he's stirring the pot, as I'll say, if you guys watch the third one. I mean, I can't really give his character away too much. He doesn't have a big role, but the roles that he did play when he wasn't the woodsman, they were vital. So I liked him a lot. Overall, man, I don't know if you're ready to end it, but I'll go with you and say after the dust has settled, I agree with you. The first one is the best one out of all the three. My favorite doesn't have to be the best one. Was the nostalgia to a camping horror film. I love that so much. I don't know why. I guess it's just because I grew up on Friday the 13th. This one was kind of, I won't say a standalone. This one was very different than the first two. Maybe it was a setting and time and history, but I think they did an okay, but not great tie-in with everything. There were some questions we've had through all these episodes, but overall, I mean, you get a thumbs up for me on this series, and I'll definitely check in to whatever spinoff that they have. Overall series, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I like it.
Why'd you go 7.5? Because that's exactly where I was going.
I stole it from you. My bad.
But yeah, that's how I feel about this. As I said before, if someone told me that they were thinking about watching this, I'd say, yeah, go ahead. It's going to be. I think you might like it. I'm not going to give it a glowing endorsement because, yeah, it does have some story plot holes, and there are some awkward things about it that I didn't care for. But as a whole, I mean, if you're going to sit down and watch a nice little series of young adult horror, why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited for where they go with this, but I'm pleased with the reactions that we both had, and I'm glad we had a little differences there. And I'm glad it wasn't a waste of my time. Goodness, man. I've seen some movies that absolutely infuriated me. And I think it was because I was younger and just had a really simple outlook on things. I used to tell everyone that the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village, was the worst movie I'd ever seen. And I'd held that up until last weekend when I saw the new Fast and Furious movie. So,
see, I didn't think The Village was that bad.
Well, I was also like 17 when I saw it too, so I wasn't.
I mean, the twist was disappointing, and we won't reveal that here because
yeah, I was very disappointed. I was like, "That's it? Oh
that's
my
a
God!"
polarizing movie, kind of like The Happening. You either like it or you don't.
It's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Overall, great. I'm glad you let me be a part of this, man. This is really fun.
Now, I do want to keep this going, and I think you've expressed that you want to as well. And we're going to start looking at a little bit more of the newer modern horror releases and maybe bring you something a little new. We'll take a look and see what we've got available, where we're at, and bring you something else maybe next week. Hopefully, that'd be nice sometime. Yep. And thanks again for tuning in, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Smith, for joining me on this. I've had a lot of fun doing this on my YouTube channel as well as my Twitch and doing it live. Even though we didn't get any viewers or commenters this week, it still feels nice to do this in front of a live audience. And of course, if you're going back and watching this on YouTube, you can also go back and watch our thoughts on the first 2 parts of the Fear Street series if you feel up to it. And hopefully by the time you get there, we'll have some newer 2021 movies, horror to check out and enjoy. So, yeah, do you have anything you want to close with otherwise?
Nope. You nailed it, man. I'll be back and we'll do some more of these. And this is a lot of fun. So thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. All right. So thanks again to everyone who joined us live or watched or give us a thumbs up or spread the word about our series. I did see that we had some views on YouTube, so I do thank those that came in. Leave us a nice comment. Let you know if you have any ideas for things that you want us to do or talk about in these horror movies, whether it's a favorite character or focus more on favorite kills and break things down like that. Because I'd love to have a little bit more structure towards the end as far as like maybe some awards or things like that from each film that we watch. And maybe that's something we'll look into as well. But yeah, we're always open to ideas, and this has been a lot of fun. So thanks for stopping by, and remember to stay below.